today's program. So welcome everybody to today's program. My name is Alec Cooley. I'm a senior advisor with Busch Systems. And I am joined by the whole team with Zero Waste Campus Council. This is a joint program between both of our organizations. Just real briefly, Busch Systems, we are a manufacturer of recycling and waste bins, and we do a whole webinar series. We'll share more information about that toward the end. But we're excited to partner with the Zero Waste Campus Council, which is a nonprofit organization that is made up of folks like yourselves who are actively involved in the trenches, organizing and managing waste and recycling zero waste programs, different institutions around the US. We're partnering with them to do sort of a hybrid of two different types of programs that we do as respective organizations, but we'll be explaining more about that and about our each of our organizations later in the program today. So today's theme is on zero waste, special events and other aspects of waste reduction from special events. And as I think all of us are familiar who have ever worked with special events, there are some very unique aspects to how you do that. Even though there are commonalities such as collection bins, the need for good signage, and other aspects to make for a good program, when you're setting up that temporary infrastructure that's involved with making new arrangements for collection logistics, you're having to adapt to space already there. There are a lot of those unique features that make this different in a lot of ways from a traditional waste collections. And so that's why we want to do this dedicated focus on this topic. We're going to be covering a whole lot of different types of issues as we go through today's program. So first off, we're going to be doing a sort of a hybrid program. We're going to start off with a couple of presentations, just high level, very brief. We're going to hear first from Zachary Delaney, who is with Zero Waste PA, which is a program of the Pennsylvania Resource Council. And then we'll hear from Morgan Lehner with the University of Texas at Austin, each giving case study presentations about what they're doing at their respective institutions. From Zachary, we're going to hear more about sort of a community level, working with different types of groups and events in Pittsburgh. And then from Morgan, we'll hear more about how they're doing it, working on a campus environment with academic related events. So once we're done hearing from them, we're gonna split out and we're gonna reserve the majority of our time today for actual just group discussion, knowing that to learn and really get the most out of what others are doing, it's helpful not just to hear from other case studies, but to actually be able to share some of your own experience, what's worked for you, what hasn't, what questions or challenges are you facing at your institution. So this will be an opportunity during the second part of our program to really interact, speak up in small group discussions. We'll explain more about how those group discussions are going to go later in the program, but as you can see up here on your slide, it's just a basic breakout of how we're going to organize those based on different topics that you might have a specific interest in, or if you want to focus and spend more time just with the speakers, that will also be an option. Again, we'll talk more about this later in the program. To make this, the greatest value, we want to really encourage everybody to participate actively. Using just the traditional chat function, share your thoughts, question, observations, what you're doing at your own institution that may be relevant to points that are being made by others at any point during the program. Because we're using the Zoom meeting format, we do want to encourage everybody to keep your microphones turned off during the presentations and just turn them on simply when you are actively speaking during the group discussion to keep background noise off. When we do transition to the group discussions, though, it's very helpful if folks can turn on their cameras just so we all have a sense of presence and being able to interact with each other. We will, during this program, another way that you can participate is we will be taking notes during the actual discussion. And bear with me for one moment, I'll just show you how we're going to be doing with this deck. So these slides that I'm streaming from my desktop are available as a Google slide deck that anybody can access live now during the program. If you look into the chat, you should see my colleague is going to drop in the link to how to pull up this deck. So we'll both show this on the main screen, but you can also access these at any point if you want to come back after the program to view the slides or some of the discussion notes. So I'm just scrolling down here. If you see down in the deck further down, we're setting up blank slides. We'll have note takers capturing points being made during the presentation. So these are all things that you can refer to throughout the program or afterward. If there are, if you're not able to participate in a secondary room that you would have liked to, again, you'll be able to come back here and find notes afterwards. So I just put this out so if you're aware of it. The other way that you can participate is toward the end of this slide deck, we've included some slides here where both some of the speakers and some of us have already uploaded just examples of resources that may be useful. You can see we have UT Austin's bin signage template and links here. So you'll be able to find these links and access them at any point during the program or afterward. And we encourage you on some of these subsequent slides, go in and add your own. If there are examples of what you're doing at your campus or your institution, let's make this interactive and share with everybody. So, and then the final thing I'll point out is that at the very end of the deck, we've also set up blank slides where we encourage you, if you have photos of your actual special event programs or the types of bins you're using, other things you want to share, this would be a fun way of, again, interacting. You can come in here and just copy and paste photos straight into some of these blank slides. Encourage you to use this function to type in your organization's name, so we have a little labeling, but again, all these are resources that'll be available after the program. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And we're going to start off, as I said, with 2 quick presentations. First, we're going to welcome up Zachary Delaney, who again is a Zero Waste PA Program Manager with the Pennsylvania Resource Council. And Zachary, if you want to unmute yourself and turn your camera, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you very much for that introduction. Like you said, my name is Zach. I am the Zero Waste PA Program Manager for Pennsylvania Resources Council, which is an environmental nonprofit that's been running in Pennsylvania for over 80 years. Big focuses on policy, waste, and education, really. So on this, we're mostly going to be talking about, of course, the waste side of things. And so this is all about our technical assistance and our special events and zero waste events programming, essentially. So we're good to go to the next slide whenever you're ready. This is just a quick overview. I'm going to very, very lightly touch on the service suite that we have overall as an organization relating to waste and otherwise, and then kind of go through those things categorically. Look at our technical assistance, the special events kind of template that we have, and then I have 2 case studies, and then we'll end out quickly with some just fundamental principles of zero waste. So to begin, PRC service suite, we do a lot of our work through either foundation or grant funding, as well as contracting and working with municipalities and county, city, and things like that to accomplish a lot of these programs. And so we run pickup, collections, and events all across southwestern, western, and central Pennsylvania for household hazardous waste and chemicals, electronics waste, hard to recycles. One of the big ones that we've been doing locally in the area around Pittsburgh is glass, because it has been a very contentious issue over the pandemic in the last several years on glass recycling and municipalities reducing their intake of glass. And so setting up drop-off locations and moving around kind of pickup spots for glass. We do adult workshops and youth education workshops focused on rain barrels, composting, gardening, all of those kinds of things, as well as like the in-school programming. We have that sliver focused on policy and advocacy, because a lot of waste relies on the policy that surrounds it and the legislation surrounding it. Pennsylvania's waste laws are really kind of antiquated. They're outdated. It's been about 30, 40 years since some of our waste and recycling laws have been put into place. And so a lot of the work that we do is bounded by what our legal system allows for or requires municipalities and people to comply with. So we enter that space as much as we can, and then naturally the zero waste events and the waste auditing and technical assistance side, which technical assistance is coming on right now. So the technical assistance, I know that they'll be dropping in the chat something that I have shared, which is just our template for our site evaluation / site questionnaire. Whenever we talk about technical assistance, we have a lot of different, things that can fall into that category. But for the most part, we're looking at waste auditing. So that can be as small scale as local restaurants to as large scale as an entire airport. The size of the facility is really dependent on what staff we have available, who we can get contracted out, because we will contract other people to assist us with these things, as well as who's willing to participate with us. And that process almost always begins with either us reaching out to somebody or somebody reaching out to us and doing a couple of preliminary meetings, conducting a site evaluation or even 2 site evaluations, which will be accompanied by that questionnaire. And that helps us define what the exact scope of our project will be. Some places want to do a waste audit because they would like to have raw data. They're looking for a baseline so that as they make changes and improvements over the next several years, they will be able to compare that directly to the baseline that we help provide for them. It'll also help us decide, like I said, how many people we need. Whenever you have the audit, sometimes their scope will just be one single day. Depending on their size, though, they may ask for more days, or depending on the frequency or seasonality, it may be multiple days in a row, or one day, 1 week, and then 2 months later, another day. That's, all of those logistics kind of go through in that process. And then whenever the time comes, we will bring our crew in, have all of that waste collected over that time period and have it completely separated so that it's unique and that it's uncontaminated from any waste that would have happened prior to the audit time frame. Typically, we would sort that on site. We'll also usually build into the proposal, assuming that they don't have composting services on site, and some may not even have recycling services, that will manage all of that for them. We'll build that into the proposal so that after the audit's finished, we'll take that away for them. And then afterwards, we'll provide them that raw data and typically also a report that gives them recommendations, as well as lays out what implementation could look like and how we might be able to assist them with that. So we'll break down their contamination rates, as well as what their actual kind of like success is overall with waste diversion, or what composting could look like for them in terms of that success. Now for, I'm good for that. For the zero waste events, this is where a lot of our March through November time goes. It is accomplished through a lot of staffing at events, a lot of education, purchasing and procurement and consulting type work, as well as building partnerships. We will also typically do similar quote unquote like audit type work at the end of these events to do data collection and give them an evaluation and report at the end. However, one of the big components of this, like I said, is kind of that like consulting and that recommendations, and that starts at the very beginning of the process. So just recently this week, we're looking at the Pittsburgh Marathon. That's one of our case studies below, but we meet with them. We review what the actual route for the marathon is. We review who their concessionaires and who their vendors are. We review the recommendations from last year, because at the end of last year's event, they had like pallets and pallets of like bananas and just excess food. And so addressing if we've improved our relationship with a food rescue or food recovery organization, and whether they're intending on reducing that food purchasing or not, because last year, really extreme rain and weather reduced the amount of people that attended. So is their attendance for this year expected to be higher than last year? What kind of protocols they have in place for that? And so reviewing all of those things categorically at the very beginning to understand where the waste can be diverted before the event even happens, where waste can be avoided, of course, as well as for an event like the marathon, you're not looking so much at a lot of like utensils and things, but it's a lot of cups, bottles, as well as like heat sheets and all of the marathon gear and swag and all throughout the route. And so, well, I guess that we could get into that whenever the actual case study part comes up. But like I said, the zero waste event, we will provide them with all of the resources and materials that they need to make effective and intelligent purchasing. So making purchasing that reduces toxic chemicals and PFAs by trying to recommend wooden or bamboo utensils, as well as showing them resources where they can check their purchasing, and really overall just evaluate their event so that they can try to determine the most effective way to reduce their waste, which we will show up for them too. We will go to the event, man all of these stations, typically bringing wireframe containers that have signage on them, and having people at the events, at the stations, either guarding, not necessarily guarding, but making sure that people are using the appropriate containers as needed. And then, like I said, we'll help them sort and manage, as well as make sure that the dumpsters are there. So we'll organize the compost haulers, help organize the food recovery. All of that kind of stuff kind of goes through us. So we can move on to the next slide. Another thing that we do that we are considering changing in the future, just because of how it takes so much out of our hands, we really want to try to focus on either figuring out whether we're training the trainer or whether we are doing direct services. And the zero waste kit rental is kind of an example that's right in the middle, where we give them all of the resources that they need, but then we're letting them rent out the wireframe containers, the bags, the signage, and all of that kind of stuff. But then we're kind of expecting them to manage all of that waste on their own. So for these events, which are typically smaller, we will not be providing them that service of handling all of their waste afterwards or organizing with them to make sure that somebody's doing the food recovery. This is kind of like the hand off, and we're giving them all of the information ahead of time and expecting them to be able to use it effectively. So in the future, this program, could be changing, because that could be including either more direct staff assistance or more training in the future. But this is a good alternative for smaller events that don't need as much staffing. And then to kind of move on to these case studies here, like I was talking about the marathon, an exceptionally complex event, because it's, a marathon, it's 26 miles. There are usually between 30 and 40 stations, many volunteers. However, this is one of our most successful large scale events, typically reaching the 90% diversion rate. And that's because we have a partner that is willing to talk to us in January about an event that happens in May, and is also ready to fully contract out the labor that we are going to put in. And it's not cheap. It can cost thousands and thousands of dollars for all of the staff labor and to organize all of the waste hauling and all of those kinds of things. So it is really all about effective partnerships, having a really strong relationship, and having that commitment towards sustainability, and having the data to back up that it works and that it makes sense. Since I talked about the marathon already a little, we can move on to the Arts Festival, which is on the next slide. So this is another example of a really, really complex event. It is a 10-day long festival that has, just tens of thousands of pounds of waste at it that can change year to year. And this is, as I said, it's really an example of how you need to be planning ahead for these events. You need to be directly addressing their purchasing patterns, and at times this could include ensuring that in the food truck and vendor contracts that there could be a deposit in there that says that you are expected to bring your compostables to this event. And if you don't successfully comply with our waste management plan, we will not be returning that deposit to you at the end of the event. Whatever methods that you need to use to make sure, because at an event of this scale, it's almost impossible for our team of staff who's already managing the thousands of pounds of waste to then additionally do all of that minutia of going to the food trucks and making sure. So there needs to be a lot of support on both ends. And for events of this size, having that either contractually obligated, written, or emphasized in the most serious and strict way is one of the most effective ways of actually proceeding with these kinds of things. And then to sort of finish out, because I don't want to go too much over time, this is just a waste hierarchy. You will all be able to see this as necessary, but it basically just covers the fundamental components of well, reducing and diverting and avoiding waste, all the way from incineration up to source reduction, which is the most ideal. And this is the from an institute that is linked in my resources, but really it just focuses on something similar to what the true zero waste principles are, which is about redesigning your event, reducing and reusing, and then eventually moving to composting, recycling, and then landfilling as the absolute last option that you have. And with that, my contact information is on the next slide, and I will be available for the discussion later.
Great, thank you, Zachary. I'll just interject and just again underline how there's a lot of information here. There's a lot we would love to hear, but by design, we're keeping the presentations relatively short, with the idea that we can use these breakout rooms afterward if you want to take more of a deep dive and get more of the granular level from Zachary or Morgan. That'll be an option at that point. But first, let me go ahead and welcome up Morgan Lehmer with the University of Texas, Austin, who's going to talk about more from a campus perspective and as well as focusing on the organic side in particular. Go ahead, Morgan.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the introduction, Alec. As Alec said, I am the Zero Waste Program Coordinator with the University of Texas at Austin. Really excited to share more about our Zero Waste Events program and how we work with event planners across campus to reduce waste. So the University of Texas at Austin, for those who aren't familiar, is the flagship campus for the UT system. We're located centrally in Austin, Texas. We've got a lot of folks to educate and work with. So we've got over 52,000 students and 14,000 employees. And then in terms of size, physical size, we've got over 18 million square feet of building floor area in our education and general use buildings. So the 2012 Natural Resources Conservation Plan is what spurred the creation of the new resource recovery branch at UT Austin, as well as UT Austin's initial zero waste goal, which was zero waste by 2020. The city of Austin does have a universal recycling ordinance in place. However, UT Austin is exempt. So as far as, any state or city mandates dictating our work, we don't have anything else going on like that. The Zero Waste team includes 2 staff coordinators, so that includes myself, as well as our interns that are assigned to specific project teams and are really instrumental to our program rollout and our maintenance. We fall under the university's facility services, and we're considered an operations-focused unit. So our work in the education and general use buildings on campus is centrally funded, but we're continuing to build partnerships with different auxiliary groups across campus as well. And then within Zero Waste, our Zero Waste Events team, project team was formally established in 2018 to support the staff and faculty event planners with on-campus events, although we had been casually observing events for many years prior. We currently have 3 interns who each work about 10 hours per week on this program. And since 2019, including the pandemic, we worked with over 75 different event planners on a variety of events, from 10-person staff retreats to 200 attendee multi-day conferences to outdoor events with thousands of students, staff, faculty, and general public attendees. And I will note there is a separate student organization on campus that offers similar assistance to student planned events. We can move to the next slide. So for the next few slides, I want to highlight some of the main barriers and challenges that we've seen from both the individual event planner perspective as well as from the broader university. And the first one is access to compost, which has been growing in interest from students, staff, and faculty over the past few years. Resource Recovery secured an internal campus Green Fund grant about 5 years ago that kickstarted our ability to establish a compost route on campus. We determined permanent compost collection capacity at our different waste corrals based on our daily operations and not on events, but long-term, we're working to station additional 64-gallon compost toters, as well as 1.5-yard compost dumpsters strategically across campus. So that way we can temporarily provide extra collection capacity as needed for those larger events. especially those with bulky pizza boxes. So once we were able to establish the baseline route and system for campus, then we could figure out how to plug in events. So the existing system for events is that event planners can either choose to utilize existing bins in their space or request additional bins through a centralized online event planning request form that operates through our Facility Services Center. So there's a separate facility services group called Events and Moving Services who has a fleet of 32-gallon brutes, gray for landfill trash and blue for our single stream recycle. And what's great is that our teams collaborated and we're excited to be adding bumper sticker signage on all of their bins this semester so that we can provide baseline guidance, like sorting guidance for attendees at all of our events. So since there's no mandate to have compost at events, it's up to the event planner to reach out to our team to request compost bins. In December 2021, we integrated compost bin request rental into that same central event request form. We call this, our part of it, the Zwigo supply store. We could have created our own form. However, joining the main one had a lot of benefits, including that it would be part of the existing work order and billing system, so we wouldn't have to handle those logistics. And it's already the place that event planners go to for their cleaning needs, renting tables, AV, all those kinds of things. So now that we're part of the form, clients have to click through our page no matter what. So we do have event planners requesting compost bins or purchasing compostable ware that might not hear about us otherwise, which is really great. So our fleet of compost bins, some of which I'm staging behind me a little bit, currently includes 10 23-gallon bins, 12 32s, and about 30 45-gallon bins, all of which are green, which is the standard color for compost on campus. And whenever event planners request bins, we always specify the correct liner size to purchase that goes along with it. After the first semester of renting bins out, we realized the importance of being able to easily display signage and providing bins with standard signage so that the event planner can easily swap it out to customize it if they want to do that. So we went through a research process of identifying either alternative bins with built-in signage holders or DIY methods to add signage holders using the considerations that I have on the slide here. So we now rent out the Busch Systems waste watchers as our smallest bin option, which are really popular for indoor events and are kind of our more refined bins. The 45-gallon bins are Clearstream X frames, which we already had on hand, and we were able to purchase the company's signage kits to easily slide into the frames. For the 32-gallon brutes, which match the recycle and landfill trash bins that are already stocked, we weren't able to find a product on the market that fit all of our needs. So we're in the process of doing a DIY signage holder using U-shaped metal yard sign stakes, rubber bands, and binder clips. Next slide. So the industrial facility we bring material to finds us for contamination. So one of the main ways that we reduce contamination is by keeping all compost toters locked and only allowing those who have gone through training to receive keys to them. So each semester we set a monthly training schedule so event planners can determine ahead of time what training they can join that works with their event schedule. We go over the basics of what belongs in each bin, including a review of common mistakes in recycling. We also discuss contamination prevention strategies such as streamlining packaging materials, using bin signage and bin monitors, and the responsibilities of the event planner to prevent contamination. Our Zero Waste Events team also offers free consultations to the event planner. We can go over those same content as in the training, but also go into detail about other waste reduction strategies, things like what Zachary mentioned. We talk a lot about mapping out placement and quantity of compost bins as well. And as part of that same online store where we loan the compost bins, we also sell BPI certified compostable serviceware, which can allow event planners to streamline materials if their caterer can't provide that, but also avoiding the event planner can avoid any potential greenwashing if they were trying to purchase items on their own. So we always want to meet event planners where they're at, even if that sometimes means telling them that composting isn't the right fit for their event based on the materials they have planned. Sometimes we really just encourage a focus on collecting bottles and cans for recycling or reducing the amount of paper handouts. We never want to overwhelm them because the chances are that they plan multiple events throughout the year and they can build upon their successes each time. So we recognize that another barrier for many event planners is the additional cost and staffing to have a zero waste event. So for those with the budget, our team can be hired to support the event the day of, which takes away that added responsibility for the event planner. We also have a bin monitor toolkit, which includes like an abbreviated compost training and guidance that event planners can pass along to volunteers or staff who are helping the compost if they want to go that route. We loan the compost bins at no charge unless they come back damaged or lost. And then the remaining items in the Zuiko supply store, the compostable serviceware, liners, gloves, we purchase in bulk and then we sell in smaller quantities with the goal of passing along the savings to the event planner. Next slide. And then finally, we conduct as much proactive outreach as we can and also receive referrals from other groups on campus. Since event planning can fall into many people's roles on campus, we have used an existing event planner Slack and listservs to promote our services, as well as have collaborated with the Facilities Service Center to try and reach out to event planners earlier in the planning process. Last summer, we started a well-attended annual info session to reach event planners when it's a little less busy on campus so that they have the time, to get to know us and our services. And then finally, in terms of outreach and education, once the event planner is on board, we always try to discuss with them how they can then communicate about zero waste with their attendees, whether it's strategically including information in the promotional materials ahead of time, using our customizable waste bin signage, templates, and other announcements during the event, and then highlighting diversion and collection successes afterwards. So I know that was a lot of information. Really excited to speak with some of you all and answer any questions you have, whether it's in the breakout group or just contacting me by email afterwards.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. Again, fantastic high-level overview. Appreciate that. There's a lot going on, that's for sure. I'll just point out these are some of the resources that Morgan had. So again, if you come into the Google deck that is the deck that's in the Google Drive, you can click on these links and it will take you straight to the resources that Morgan's referring to. So know that is there. So now we're gonna, before we shift and go into breakout groups, we did have one quick live poll question, and if we can bring the actual form onto you, you should now see this on your screen, and you can go ahead and start clicking on the responses here, hopefully. But our question is to learn what are your biggest challenges with special events. And we just put some options here. Obviously, there might be some other ones. And so if you do have unique challenges, questions, feel free to just drop those into the chat, and we can share that way. And we'll wait just another 15 or 20 seconds to see if how many more responses come in, and then we can show the results. And then we'll pivot over. So it's great to see a good turnout. It looks like we have about 160 people on today's program, which is fantastic. Should lead to some good conversations. So let's wait just, let's go another 10 seconds. Let some of the stragglers reply. And why don't we go ahead, Marissa, let's go ahead and publish the results if we can do that. Apologies for anybody who wasn't able to get in there, but just so we can all see where things ended up. We have, looks like the majority of people are identifying the vendor participation and the challenges with coordinating that, as well as 35% put down just operational logistics of coordinating service. 26 are saying training staff. Then obviously the big one is attendee outreach and engagement. How do we deal with contamination, which is an evergreen topic. So that's great. Thanks for everybody for participating. So now let's go ahead and start getting ready for the breakout groups. And what I'm going to do first is introduce Julie Muir from Stanford University and with Zero Waste Campus Council, and she's going to introduce what we're going to be doing with the breakout groups and focus areas. And so I'll hand it over to Julie.
Great, thanks, Alec, and thanks to Zach and Morgan for your presentations. I took a lot of good notes and downloaded your resources, because why recreate the wheel, right? If you've already developed some great resources, this is a great opportunity to take what you've had, use it and or modify it for your campus. So what we like to do at the Zero Waste Campus Council meetup waste downs that we do once a month, we really like to get into breakout rooms and have everyone kind of share what they do. And so I'm going to share with you how we're going to do this. So the room number 1, our speakers, Zach and Morgan, are going to go into breakout room number 1, and these will be available in the bottom. We'll show you how to do it in a moment. And if you had any particular questions you wanted to dive in with them, you are welcome to go to room number 1 to do that. In room number 2, Alec, you want to go for it? There you go. Room number 2, Nikhil is going from Pomona College is going to facilitate a discussion about planning and logistics. This might include training and procedures, coordinating service providers, coordinating with vendors on food packaging, anything that kind of involves that pre-planning, logistical kind of thing. Plan to join room number 2. And then in room number 3, Lynn King from UC Berkeley and Alec will join you for a discussion about appropriate bin specifications, what to display on signs, how to place them, all of the kind of the conversation around bins and signage. So please join number 3 if you are interested in that. Number 4, Laura Gonzalez Ospina from Sacramento State University here in California is going to facilitate a discussion on outreach and engagement, looking at bin station monitors, displays, tabling, other ways to reach attendees, and maybe even working on communications at the event before, during, and after. So if that's something that you'd like to share or learn about more, please feel free to join breakout number 4. Then here in the main room, I will be here to just have general topics that don't have anything to do with the other breakout rooms about event waste reduction. And if you need any tech support, Marissa will also be in this room, and you can stay right here and we can have a conversation about events and go from there. So on the last slide here, we're going to open up those breakout rooms. We hope all 150 of you will move into one of these. You'll see a link at the bottom. It will just arrive all of a sudden where it says breakout rooms. Click on that and then click join. And then we'll see you in those breakout rooms. After a certain period of time, Alec will bring us back into the main room all together so that we can go over some last minute information that we want to share with you. So have fun in your breakout rooms.
Great. And so just to reiterate what Julie was just pointing out, if you come into the Google slide deck, you can see we've included slides here toward the end, and it looks like a few people have dropped some photos in, but we've got room to drop in more. So feel free to come in on your own. And again, these will all be archived long term. And with that, so we're gonna just to close up, we wanted to come back and just make again an introduction to our organizations in a little bit more depth, so you'd have an idea of who we are and some of the resources that are available going forward and how you engage. And so let me bring on Nikhil to talk a little bit more about the Zero Waste Campus Council.
Thank you, Alec. So yes, I'm Nikhil Schneider. I'm with the Zero Waste Campus Council. We are a technical council under the California Resource and Recovery Association. But despite being under the California Resource Recovery Association, we're open to all participants, no matter their geographic location. Most of our members are from like higher ed institutions, but we welcome participants from medical campuses, corporate campuses, all types of campuses, really. We just want to see zero waste campuses. So our goal is to kind of help people share different challenges, solutions, insights, and data, related to zero waste. so that these best practices can be adapted and scaled and expanded across campuses nationwide. We host a monthly meetup waist down networking event. So similar to kind of the breakout rooms on different topics that we did today, we'll break out into rooms, and that's an opportunity for any attendees to, discuss their challenges, share best practices and successes, things like that. So that's on the last Tuesday of every month, and it's an opportunity to, connect with other zero waste professionals working on similar challenges. We also have a Slack channel that you can join. There's a link in the slide deck, as well as our contact information. And then also I'll plug the California Resource and Recovery Association conference. So the annual conference will be held this coming August in Burlingame, California. And I see in the link, someone said the Slack link is no longer active. So thank you for pointing that out, Savannah, and we will update that in the slide deck.
Great. Yeah, so that, in addition to that, also, we will be sending out after this program within the next day or two, we'll be sending out a link just to the recording for the first two presentations, as well as we'll include the link to this document, so you'll be able to come back in and find these at any point down the road. Great. So thank you, Nikhil. And so on my end, hopefully many of you are familiar with our company, Busch Systems, but I want to point out that beyond simply being a manufacturer of recycling and waste bins, we part of our goal is to be a resource just to help to improve programs in general, and that's the reason we do these webinar series where we sort of make them open source and not just talk about our products, but really trying to highlight what are the best practices, what are the general knowledge out there that we've all collectively have developed at our respective institutions, and how do we exchange that? And so that's the spirit of a separate webinar series that I lead on more or less every other month or so. The frequency depends. We've been excited to partner with Zero Waste Campus Council to do sort of this hybrid of our respective separate events, which we will continue to be doing on the side. And we are hoping to do one more program together with Busch and Zero Waste Campus Council later in the spring, and just look for more information that will be emailed out to everybody who registered. But again, specific to the Busch Systems webinar series that I lead, you can see here just some examples of some of the past topics that we've done. We tend to, we're not specific to any one sector like college, university, or corporate, but trying to reach all the different areas with a range of different types of topics. These are more traditional talking head where we have longer presentations involved, and we like to try and bring in some panel discussion as well for those programs. So you can find the archive and recordings for all of those on our website at buschsystems.com. We have not finalized the details for our next one, but we do anticipate doing another webinar at the end of February that will focus on some topic, again, with presentations. So again, look for emails to come out down the road if you're interested in that. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the program. Again, just want to highlight again, these are all just examples of resources that people have been sharing during the program on the slide. So if you have examples, are there do you have an arrangement with vendors doing procurement with actual written guidelines on how that's supposed to work? Or do you have examples of language you put into hauling contracts that can be used specific to special events? Other resources like that might be things that others can glean and have an aha moment just responding to things that you might be sharing. Those are all the kinds of things that we encourage sharing here on this resource doc. So I encourage folks to either right now in the moment, or if you think of something after the fact, to come in and just enter them in straight in yourself. And well, that is a resource going forward. And then last thing, I'll just point out that we will, after the program, you should receive an email or prompt for a survey that we've created that just helps us to improve these programs going forward. We'd love to get your feedback, both from any testimonials, anything you want to share for our speakers. We'll be sure to pass that on and share it with them, as well as ways that we can improve the format of these programs going forward. So again, thank you very much for joining our program today. Thank you to Julie, Lynn, Laura, Nikhil, everybody with Zero Waste Campus Council, and especially thanks to Morgan and Zachary for your presentations. We look forward to seeing you down the road. Have a good day.
Great. Thank you, Alec.